71% of Gen Z and 68% of millennials report feeling anxious about their finances, and about 70% of Americans say that they feel completely alone when dealing with money. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed, behind, or you're like the only person who can't figure out this money thing, I want you to know right now that you are not alone. And today we're going to talk about exactly why this feeling exists, where it comes from, and what you can do about it. Welcome, new and returning Money Buddies. I'm your host, Skylar Fleming, and have you ever felt stressed about money? I can guarantee that each one of you listening, including me, has felt stress around money, and that's okay. That's what we're here to talk about today, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and today we're going to understand just how common it is for everyone to be stressed with their money, what you can do about it, how to overcome it, and how to manage money within our mind with all sorts of different biases and money scripts and things that come into play. And we're going to talk about how to overcome financial procrastination. And today's case study is going to walk you through exactly what it could look like for you in 12 months if you start applying what you're going to learn in today's episode. During my CFP education, I loved learning about these different financial biases because once you know about these, you can use them as a superpower to your own benefit because you can start to recognize these and understand the role they play in your financial life. So I'm excited to teach all of you today how you can understand these and use these as a benefit when it comes to managing your money. So let's get into today's episode. So I want to start out today's research with some of those statistics around the stress that we all feel with our money. I want to start out this way so that you know you're not alone, because from this first article it says, quote, "While money-related worries affect all generations, financial stress disproportionately impacts younger and middle-aged adults. 71% of Gen Z and 68% of millennials report anxiety over their finances. 76% of Americans feel alone in managing money-related worries, and 33% say healthcare affordability has negatively impacted their mental health in the last year, and 29% of people cite it as their main obstacle to seeking care." And I want to throw in that healthcare one because that's something that we're all feeling stressed about. So just know in all of these areas, you're not alone. There are other people also struggling with their money, and it's something that we can overcome. And I know that we all feel financial stress, but it is true that it disproportionately affects those of us who are younger. And I think that's because our lives are starting to get more complex, but also things are just more complex than they ever used to be, right? Every generation has gone through this phase where their life is beginning to get more complex. But ours is exceptionally more complex because there's just so much changing all around us. We all deal with money stress. We're not alone. And that's why it's so important to talk about money. So now that you know that money stress is real and you're not alone, I want to help you understand what's actually going on inside your brain and why these money decisions can be so difficult. So next, I'm going to walk you through 10 biases that show up in all of our financial lives. We're going to go through each one. I'm going to tell you the definition, and then I'm going to hit on a couple of them specifically. So don't worry about memorizing this list or writing all of these down. Just note which ones make you think a little bit more and then work on those further. And you can find all of these biases on my website at fp4ya.com/guide and then click on psychology at the top. But here's number 1, present bias, the tendency to overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue future ones. Number 2 is loss aversion, which means losses feel roughly twice as painful as the equivalent gains feel good. Losing $100 hurts more than winning $100. The third one is mental accounting, which means treating money differently based on where it came from or where it's assigned, even though every dollar is worth the same amount. And you should also be careful with number 4, which is anchoring bias, over-relying on the first piece of information that you encounter when making a decision, even if it's arbitrary or irrelevant. And number 5 is one that I'm going to talk about in more detail here in just a second, but it's overconfidence bias. It means you're overestimating your own predictions and your own ability and your own knowledge. It's common among people who don't know a whole lot about a subject. And number 6, while this is a fun board game to play with your family, it's another bias you want to be careful of, and that's herd mentality. It means you're following the crowd in a financial decision when the consensus feels safe, even if the crowd is wrong. And number 7 is a big problem if we're not careful, and that's sunk cost fallacy. And that means you continue to invest time, money, or energy into something because of what you've already spent, rather than what the benefit is going to be. And the 8th bias on my website is confirmation bias. This means you're seeking out information that just confirms what you already believe and dismiss evidence to challenge it. And now I do want to talk about 3 specific ones before we get into the last 2. And the ones that I want you to really be aware of include mental accounting, overconfidence, and herd mentality. These 3 specific ones are extremely important to be aware of because if you're mentally accounting your money, you might be treating it differently, which can lead to you not taking advantage of opportunities that you should because you think the money should be used for something else because that's how you've mentally accounted for it. So make sure you're actually valuing all of your money the same. An overconfidence bias is getting yourself hyped up, thinking you know it all, thinking you know how to invest, thinking you're going to be the one to hit it big and you're going to beat the stock market, which is unlikely. So stick to index funds and don't get too confident when it comes to trying to figure out the unnecessarily complex things in personal finance and investing. After all, they are unnecessary. And then the last one I want to emphasize here is herd mentality. This one's extremely important to be aware of. It can be so difficult to not follow the crowd, and we are going to talk about FOMO later, which plays very well into herd mentality. So make sure you stay tuned for that, but you need to be aware of this. There may be moments where following the crowd feels safe, but it could be very, very wrong. So make sure you're at least aware of those 3 that I just highlighted, but check out my guide at fp4ya.com/guide. Click on psychology at the top and read more about all of these biases. And you can also find some helpful information about aligning your spending with your values and dealing with money in a relationship on the guide as well. But now I want to get into the 2 more biases that I found in my research, and I want you to make sure that you hear about these ones specifically. From World Scholar Review, number 9 is framing effect. Framing effect, which is a cognitive bias that describes how people's decisions and choices are influenced by the way it's presented. This is something that's very important to be aware of because you want to make sure that you know you're framing your decisions properly, because the way you frame it could help you or hurt you. And you also need to be careful of this one because it's something that a salesperson might use on you to make sure you feel like something's a good purchase. It's used in car sales all the time, investment sales, timeshare presentations. They use the framing effect to make sure you feel like you're making the right decision. So you need to be careful of this one and be aware of it so that you know if someone's trying to manipulate your perspective to make you make a decision that you shouldn't be making. The 10th and final bias that can lead to us making some bad investments is home or familiarity bias. Home or familiarity bias leads us to an emotional connection with things that are related to us, and it can lead to us being too similarly or heavily concentrated and avoiding diversification. And this is one that you need to be aware of, especially if you live in the United States, because it's very often that Americans want to invest in American companies, right? And patriotism can be something that leads to this home bias. So it's important to consider things outside of the country or outside of your employer. Because if your employer has some sort of an investment program where you can purchase their stock at a discount, it may lead you to think, yeah, we should get it at a discount because our company is so great, because you're working in it all day and you're working really hard. But that can lead to you becoming too heavily concentrated in one specific investment that you wouldn't make unless you worked there. That's why you need to be careful of home bias. You need to be careful of where you work, where you live, what state you live in, what country you live in, the people you locally interact with. And you need to make sure to be aware of that so that you know that it might influence your investment strategy so that you don't become too heavily concentrated. And now I said we were going to talk about FOMO, so that's what's up next. From US News, they say that FOMO in behavioral finance, the fear of missing out, is categorized as scarcity. Scarcity refers to a cognitive bias that influences decision making by placing an exaggerated emphasis on the limited availability of a resource rather than its actual value. This bias can lead individuals to perceive items or opportunities as more valuable than they actually are because they're perceived as scarce or rare regardless of their actual worth. And it's really important to frame FOMO as a sign of scarcity, because if you think you're going to miss out on something, or that you think that other people have something that you need to have, it's a limited availability that's causing you to fear missing out on that thing, and it might not be its actual value. And make sure you're aware of this, and make sure you know that often limited availability or limited time sales is just a way to manipulate you into this sense of fear to purchase something that you don't actually need or that you wouldn't purchase otherwise. But any sort of store or e-commerce site that is touting some sort of limited availability or a limited time sale is likely just making it up in order to manipulate you into purchasing something. This can be done with both investments that make it seem like it's a rare thing that you need to get in now, or everyday purchases at the store, or especially online. I'm willing to bet that most limited time sales or limited time runs are fake. So make sure you're aware of this one. Make sure you're aware of this manufactured scarcity and that it's just a scam to try to get you to spend your money, because FOMO can be a big mental hurdle that we need to overcome and make sure we're careful around so that we don't lose out on a bunch of our money. And now some of these money beliefs that you have might not be your own. They may have just been passed on to you. And I want to talk about money scripts next. This next article says, quote, money scripts are underlying assumptions or beliefs about money that are typically only partly true, often developed in childhood, and are unconsciously followed throughout adulthood. And I really like teaching about these money scripts because you can learn so much about them, and once you do, they become kind of a secret key to understanding how you handle money in your mind. So I'm going to tell you the 4 different money scripts, and we'll talk about them more and how they may impact you in just a second. The first one is money worship. Money worshipers believe that money buys happiness and love to flaunt their money. They obsess over money and feel like they'll never have enough. The second one is money status. People who value money status define their self-worth by their net worth. They want to buy the best quality products and may overspend to look like they have more money than they do. The third one is money avoidance. People who avoid money typically feel fear, disgust, or anxiety around money. They believe money is the root of all evil, and they may view wealthy people as greedy and believe that it's better to just have less money. And the fourth one is money vigilance. People who are money vigilant focus on being frugal. They focus on saving money and believe you need to work hard to earn your money. And now here's what I really want you to think about. A lot of you listening grew up in households where money was either never talked about or the message was just to basically spend less than you make, right? You've all heard that before. Don't go into debt. Spend less than you make and you'll be okay. Well, that silence or oversimplicity, that's a money script. It's a script that says figuring out the rest of this whole money thing is on you. And that can be what leads you to feel lost or ashamed or awkward when you get your first paycheck and you realize you still have no idea what you're doing. It's not your fault. That's the script that was planted in your head. And now understand that all of these money beliefs you have in your mind may not have been your own. They may have been planted there from when you were a kid. But now is your chance to move forward and make your own decisions about your money. But next, I want to wrap up today's research by helping you overcome financial procrastination, which I know we can all struggle with. So this next article is titled How to Tackle Financial Procrastination. And there's more steps than these 6 I'm going to share. But to keep the episode quick, I want to share these 6 steps to overcome financial procrastination. 1. Simplify and break down tasks. 2. Set some deadlines. 3. Accept where you're at today. 4. Celebrate small wins. 5. Automate and forget. And 6. Use a financial journal. And now, like I mentioned, this article does cover more tips to tackle financial procrastination, but I think these 6 are a great place to get started. I think that simplifying your tasks is a great way when you feel overwhelmed that you have so much to do. And it's great to set some specific deadlines on those smaller tasks. I think this is something you could use AI for. You could give it the bigger task and get some help brainstorming it and working it down to some smaller tasks that you could get done over a week or 2. And another thing that's extremely important too is accept where you actually are. Don't judge yourself on not being where you want to be. That's what you're working towards. Understand where you're actually at and be okay with that. And understand it's not going to change at this very moment. That's what you're working so hard to change. And then the wins along the way, as you start knocking down these smaller, simple, broken down tasks, celebrate them by buying a treat. Buy something that you want. Give yourself some things and understand and celebrate that you're working hard and you're on the right path and that spending money while you're on the right path is okay. And the psychology section in my guide has a way for you to help align your spending with your values. So make sure to check that out. But as you get rolling and start building up these wins, automate it and forget about it. Set your credit cards on auto pay so that it's paying off the statement balance every month. That's a great one to do. And there could be so many other things to automate that you're going to figure out while you're going what you can automate. And that's going to be super helpful going forward. And then as you get going, write all of this down. Get a financial journal is a great way to keep track of ideas and how you're doing with your money, because it's awesome to look back and realize that when you're in those first couple pages and budgeting seemed terrifying, and now you can look back and say, wow, budgeting is a piece of cake and I can't imagine not doing it. So write down in a journal where you're at with your money, your ideas, your feelings, your thoughts, and what you're doing with your money so that when you look back, you can be proud of yourself. And there you have it, 6 great steps to overcome financial procrastination. Check out the article for even more ideas. It's linked in the show notes. But I really hope you've enjoyed our episode so far and all the research about how to handle our mental health when it comes to our money. And I know this can still feel like a lot to take on, so I want to show you exactly what it looks like when someone just like you takes these exact steps and starts putting them into practice, one small win at a time. Up next is Savannah's story. Now let me introduce to you Savannah. Savannah is a 26-year-old earning about $72,000 a year, And of course, hearing that sounds solid. She feels like she should be okay, but she's constantly treading water. She has about $24,000 in student loans, a car payment, a lease on a one-bedroom apartment that already feels super hard to afford. Well, she does contribute enough to her 401k, so that's a win, right? But that's because it was automatic during onboarding. Beyond that, her finances feel like a mess, and she's been avoiding them for months. And now Savannah knows she needs to do something. She has a handful of financial apps on her phone that she never opens. She has notes in her journal that say, figure out money stuff. And it's been there since January, and there's some strong anxiety that spikes every time she checks her bank account. She's not reckless with her money, but it's so overwhelming. And trying to do it all of a sudden feels so stressful. She doesn't know where to start, so she doesn't do anything and stays stuck. Well, the breaking point comes on a Sunday night in March when she and two friends sit down and start venting about money over dinner. One of them makes kind of a half joke, saying they should make this a regular thing. Well, Savannah took that seriously, and they decided to meet once a month, just specifically to talk about money and hold each other accountable. And I think if everyone would do this, we would change how we handle money, and it would change a lot of people's lives. Well, back to the story. The first money session was awkward. No one knew what to say or where to start. So they moved on, and that was okay, but they planned on a second one. And Savannah said, I'm going to come prepared. So she spent a whole afternoon doing something she'd always been putting off. She opened up all of her accounts, wrote down how much money she had, wrote down how much debt she has, wrote down recurring expenses, her actual take-home pay. Seeing it all on paper was really remarkably uncomfortable and honestly downright scary. From that list, she picked two things to focus on for the next 60 days. She wanted to build a $1,000 starter emergency fund, and she wanted to pay an extra $50 a month towards her student loans. And now this is just like we talked about in today's research. Two small specific targets that she can actually talk about with her friends. And so she set up the automatic transfer of $85 per paycheck into her high yield savings account and labeled it emergency fund. And then the student loan payment, it's scheduled to come out on the same day so that they both happen as quickly as they can before she has any chance to spend that money. And now, as time keeps passing, these monthly money chats become something Savannah looks forward to. The group has developed a loose structure now. Everyone shares a win, one struggle, and a goal for the next month. And the meetings never take an hour. That's a hard deadline because who wants to talk about money for that long? Sometimes they celebrate a win by having their meeting over coffee or ice cream. Sometimes it's just a video call because they're all busy, but they want to make sure to have their meeting. The main thing that I think is so important here is they stay consistent and keep meeting. So by month 3, with some extra money and really beginning to look at her finances, Savannah has hit her $1,000 emergency fund goal. The group celebrates it because this is a big deal. The next target's $3,000. So Savannah keeps that automatic transfer running. And at month 5, one of her friends mentions that she started a sinking fund for a vacation so that it wouldn't blow up her budget. Well, Savannah had never heard of this idea before, so they learned more about it. She sets up 2 of her own, one for car maintenance and one for gifts, both with automatic and small contributions. But for the first time, some of these irregular expenses stopped feeling like emergencies. And now by month 6, Savannah is seeing her student loan balance actually visibly move for the first time. She's seen the number drop, even slowly. She's noticing it, and it's motivating her in a whole new way. She decides to increase her extra payment from $50 a month to $100 a month because this finally feels sustainable rather than a big sacrifice. And at 8 months into this whole journey, she did something that she thought she would never do. She increased her 401k contribution 2 percentage points beyond the minimum to get the match. And not because someone told her to, but because she felt like it was time to do that, because she finally feels stable enough to think about the future and to think about retirement. And guess what? She feels like retirement is actually something that is going to be possible for her because she's starting to think about money with other people. So now here we are 12 months in, and they're having another meeting to talk about money. And Savannah realizes her financial life looks unrecognizable compared to where she started. Her emergency fund is at $4,200. She's paid down $1,800 in student loan principal beyond her minimum payments. She now has sinking funds to cover car repairs and her gifts without any panic. Her 401k contribution is at 8%. And for the first time in her adult life, she's not avoiding her bank account. She's checking it regularly, and it feels normal. It's not terrifying. It's almost exciting and fun. And now each one of you listening can be like this case study. You're not going to figure this out because you're going to suddenly become a financial expert. You're going to figure this out because you stop trying to do everything all at once. You start talking to other people you trust, start setting small goals, and working toward it a little bit at a time. And the big takeaway for me here is the power of talking to other people about your money. Like in Savannah's situation, she hadn't heard about a sinking fund at all, but one of her friends mentioned it, and then she realized it could be a good strategy for her to implement with her car repair fund and her holidays. And you could use it towards whatever you want to save towards. But Savannah would have never learned about it if she hadn't talked to other people about money. And you are doing fantastic by just listening to this podcast. And I'm sure you're talking about money with other people, and that's going to help you and them by learning together. That's what my whole previous podcast, Money Talk, was all about. So make sure you're talking about money with other people, whether it's a regular monthly meeting, which can be super beneficial, or just asking questions as they come up. And now a common objection that I hear when talking about money is that it's scary or people are going to make fun of me. Well, if you're worried about that or someone actually does judge you or make fun of you because of your financial situation, talk to someone new about money. I would love to talk to each one of you listening, so send me any questions you might have. But start some sort of a money group. Find some other people that want to talk about money regularly, meet at the library every month or go out for ice cream or whatever it may be, and start talking about money together. Trust me, it's not going to be scary, and you're going to be extremely grateful in 3, 6, or 9 months when you're doing so much better financially. And I really hope you enjoyed that case study. That does it for today's episode. I hope today for each of you I was able to take a topic that feels overwhelming and stressful and help you feel motivated and encouraged that you can get on the path that you want to with your money. And thank you for listening to today's episode. We're going to wrap it all up and tease next week's episode next. So the one action item for each of you today is to find someone you can start talking about money with and ask them a question about whatever financial situation you're going through. And it would also be a great idea to share this podcast episode with them so that you both have a great foundation to build on for your new money chats that you're going to do every single month. So share this episode with a friend or a peer and you can start talking about money together. And then next week, I'm going to talk directly to recent college graduates. And I'm covering a few specific financial moves that you need to make in your first 1 to 3 years out of school that most people skip over. And if you or someone you know just recently graduated from college, you are not going to want to miss next week's episode. And thank you for listening to this week's episode of Financial Planning for Young Adults. I'm your host, Skylar Fleming. Have a great week. And hey, quick heads up. This podcast, it's meant to be educational and it's for entertainment purposes. It's not personalized financial advice for your specific situation. So before you go out and make any big money moves, make sure you chat with a qualified financial professional who knows your full financial picture.